Welcome to my video on the cells, the processor. Now, as you can see, each part is labeled with a different color, and there are a lot of colors. So I just built it with stone, but I just rebuilt it with a whole bunch of different colors. And yeah, there's a lot of different pieces. Now, the output of each cell is right there. That goes to the graphical area. Now, the inputs are here. There's two up here, and there are two down here. The ones down here, what it says is if it's that type of block, then there has to be power here. So it's impossible for all four to be on because it just will do something not normal. The most it can be on is three because blocks have one down there just for them, and then one up here, and then this one is shared between blocks and wires. Um, I'll go into depth. I'll probably make my way from just go over the most important things first, and then yeah. Well, I'll start with the blue area. This is the most important area. This area passes power around and determines the state of the cell. Now, there are a whole bunch of wires going everywhere. The only output wire is here. That goes into the actual thingy there. Now, the blue area here is controlled by all these pistons here, which I'll later explain how they all work. There's actually supposed to be in that right there. Now, in a setting state of the cell, like as it's unoccupied with any data at all, is it allows output but not input, so it won't receive any power, but it shouldn't have any power, so that's not a big deal. Now, glowstone's here, so when it takes input, it doesn't go back down this line and create an infinite cycle with the cell next to it, and that became a big problem, so I had to put glowstone here, and using the 15 block limit, can't quite reach it. Gets to that block right there and can't reach it back, so that allows chains of wires to work properly. Now down the next most important part here is this dark green area. The dark green is basically a substate. It is when a block's powered, it turns on and it turns the torch light off. So torches are controlled here. If the torch is turned on, then it'll send power up here and turn the area here on. I made this really quick, so I screwed up here. Let me just fix this. Now this just needs to be the other way around. Alright, there we go. Now that's fixed. The power goes to all the areas. All the outputs have power going to them. And so if, let's say, the neighboring block turns on, hits the power area for the input of the green area. The green thing always takes input but does not do output unless this area up here is on. It's got an AND gate here. This area here is on, and the blocks is not on, and the blocks is on because the blocks has the sand chain right here. As you can see, it's off now. All right. This red area here is if a block is on. What happens is the sand retracts. Currently, it's cycling because I have the torch thing on, so it keeps turning itself on and off. So if this area up here turns on, what happens is these pistons come down and allow it to output into all the neighboring cells. The reason they need an input from up here to go down is so the same problem up here, I don't get infinite locking. I just decided not to use the glowstone thing up here because it would get a little bit more confusing because it's a little bit more random down there. Now, moving up, we have the brown area here. Brown area is controlled from whenever there is a block or a wire. Most common is just a block. Now, as you can see, it allows input because blocks, of course, need to be able to get power, and same with wires, and they allow output. Blocks are slightly different. I'll get to that in a moment. Now, this area down here gets power. All these pistons go down. Now, a block shouldn't output because shouldn't. That's just the way redstone works. Unless there was a repeater next to it. I don't have repeaters, so shouldn't. Now, blocks are on. These pistons go down because this area receives the yellow area. Now it receives power and causes this to go down. Now, that allows no output but input. And the problem with blocks is stopping them from getting input from torches, because if they get input from a torch, then they're just going to constantly cycle on and off and on and off, because they're going to turn the torch off and it's going to create a cycle. Now, to stop that is these black lines. These black lines, when powered, these connect. This one would connect over here, and currently this would be on. So if this were to be on, then this would force the torch's output off on this side just adjacent to the block, which solves that problem. So, and all this cell is pretty intricate. There's a lot of pieces to it. I made this is about my 10th try at it. There's a stone version. This was like my 6th or 7th. Had 3 inputs. I just reduced the number of inputs. It was far more confusing. Bottom area is still the same, but this whole top area was completely different, and I don't think it worked quite right. I think blocks would power each other was the main problem. Now these are just sets of 4 for when I was testing it a bit. Now up here is it actually in there. You can see it right in here. Now there's 100 of these. There's 10 by 10. There's not any moving pistons except for these, so it's all just redstone and repeaters going back and forth and back and forth. It's just an empty area right up here. And yeah, this is just the basics of how the processor works. Its RAM gets power from there, and of course the bus line right here comes from the user interface. And I think that's a good explanation of the processor. The ones in there are not color-coded. I just quickly made this one. Took a while, though, to get everything right. And as you saw in the video, there was a little bit of a problem at first. Alright. That's how it works.